The word gratitude doesn't describe what I feel being here tonight. I live in Rome, Georgia, and I don't get a chance to come home very often. But I ask myself, if I were to die tomorrow, what would I share with you tonight? The first thing I would say is, I would say to Spec Monaco that you are the man. You are the man. Next, I would thank David Fortier. David Fortier and I played on the same team at Memorial Boulevard. I was in 8th grade, he was in 7th grade. David was the most dominating 7th grader I've ever seen. And because he was so good, I spent my entire 8th grade year watching him play basketball. Next, I would thank Tony, Dwight, Francis, and Danny. I didn't have any brothers, but they were the closest thing to it. I didn't have any brothers, but I had a dog. I had a white dog named Kano, a white poodle that went with me wherever I went. And this poodle was so special to me that he was named Kip Kano, after the Olympic runner from Kenya. And years later, I would find myself driving a white car through the Rift Hills outside Nairobi, Kenya, home of Kip Kano. Next, I would thank Northfield Mount Hermon Prep School. I was a boarding student there. I wasn't a very good student at Bristol Eastern. Out of 400 students, I graduated 333rd. From Northfield Mount Hermon, I went to BU. Boston University, so many things happened at BU. At BU, I wore number 25. 25 was the number of my sister Libby's first child's birthday. And Libby did so much for me, I wanted to honor her by wearing that number. And one day, I come out of halftime, and I see my 8-year-old niece, Charisse, cheerleading with the college cheerleaders. And I said to myself, what gives a girl that age, that confidence, to go out there and cheer with a college team? And then years later, Charisse blazed her own path of glory. She began to break walls for girls and show them that you can be a different color and a different size and still win in the sport of cheerleading. So to her, she became my inspiration. At BU, I met my teammates who were the extreme, supreme examples of what a student athlete should be. They really hit the books. And after they finish college, what they have done, what they have accomplished, inspires me to become a better version of myself. And to them, I bow and pay you homage. I owe you tremendous. I also was coached by Rick Pitino. Rick Pitino went on to become inducted into the National Basketball Hall of Fame. And while he was there at the induction ceremony, I stood with my former teammates. And I said to myself, how did I get to the National Basketball Hall of Fame? How did I get to that point? I said, I'm a product of the Bristol Boys Club. And I really am a Bristol Boys Club product. You know, when you go to the Boys Club and you see 12-year-old boys playing basketball, you see 10 kids running down the court, and 9 of the kids hear the same rhythm, and there's one kid hears a whole different rhythm. That was me. I heard a whole different rhythm. My poor father had to sit up there and watch and say, I still love my son. After BU, I began to work with the homeless. I met Mother Teresa in New York City at a convent. And as I was leaving, one of the nuns said, Daryl, will you stay and help us? And I said, these are Catholic nuns. How bad can it be? So I said, sure. So I go down to New York City on Fridays and stay until Sunday. And I thought that I would learn how to serve humanity. But what I really learned was how to mop, how to sweep, how to carry heavy loads, how to make beds. I said, it's hard out here being a nun. And then one day, one of my duties was to search the men for drugs and weapons, just to increase the safety for everybody. And I patted one particular gentleman, and I reached in his pocket and pulled out an uncapped IV needle, where a third of it was filled with some kind of liquid. And I said, who walks around New York City with an uncapped syringe and needle? He did. And so that's why I say I'm so glad to be here. Things could have been much, much different. I did make it to Calcutta, India, the home for the dying. And as I walked in, I asked somebody, what do I do now? What purpose do I serve here? And they said, God will show you. So I walked in. It was pure activity. There were men being bathed, men being fed, people preparing meals. And there was this one area, there was a large concrete rectangle tub. Next to this tub was a pile of blankets and clothes. And I asked someone, well, what happens here? And she said, somebody washes those clothes in that basin, and you wash it by hand and without gloves. And I stood there, and the longer I stood there, that pile of clothes grew and grew and grew. And I stood there, and I said, Lord, really? I said, do you know what it's taken me to get here? And this is what you want me to do? But sometimes life asks you, yes or no. Will you or won't you? And your response dictates how your life unfolds. And in ending, I just want to say that my father was without question the greatest man to walk this earth. My father. My father was inducted in 2001, and he stood here with Parkinson's, he stood here with Alzheimer's, but yet he stood here with honor and dignity and glory. My mother, she was the greatest woman ever. I loved my mother. Her name was Bertie Lee Alexander Floyd. That name I carry as Darrell Alexander Floyd. And the icing on the cake, my oldest son, Sterling, is Sterling Alexander Floyd. My younger son, Jackson, is Jackson Alexander Floyd. And my only purpose in life is to honor my mother and father and make them proud of me. And I'm so very, very happy to be here with the people of Bristol on this very night. I can't thank you enough. May God bless you.